So this year you do really well in quarters and you have been assigned to the Granite Games up in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Are you excited about that or were you hoping for somewhere else?
I'm excited. I tried to, because we didn't really have a say, try to not get too attached to any one idea. I would say my only kind of hesitation about that location is that it was just all outside last year, and I'm kind of wishfully thinking maybe it won't all be, but I do replay little bits of the ruck run and being outside and watching Granite Games and how hot it was. So crossing my fingers that it's either not all outside or we get some cooler temperatures. But yeah, I think one thing with CrossFit, you can't really get attached to anything, and you kind of shoot yourself in the foot if you do. So I'm excited to be one of the later weekends. I think that's helpful also.
Yeah, I don't think it's normal to be in the high 90s in Minnesota ever.
Yeah, I
But
hope
it
so.
was brutal. It was brutal there. I'm not optimistic for out or for indoor because I didn't even see an indoor facility
Yeah,
when we were there.
wishful thinking.
But there was nothing long.
Yeah,
The only run was around the stadium. So
yeah.
they were short runs.
I'll be interested to see if that shifts this year, because I know that Granite Games got a lot of flack for that. That it didn't really seem like a very well-rounded test as compared to some of the other ones. I know they are doing CrossFit is outlining 2 events that will be at all of the semifinals. So I think that's an interesting change this year. So I'll be very interested to see what happens as far as length of events.
Yeah, but it is a beautiful facility and it
Yeah.
is brand new, state of the art.
Yeah.
Um, really cool. And like the one hotel is right there on the grounds. All you have to do
Mm-hmm.
is walk around a pond to get to the stadium. And that's super cool. But I do have to bring up that there have been some shifts in the lineups, and Granite Games was affected pretty heavily, where three members of the were moved from Atlas Games to the Granite Games. I have publicly stated how unfair I think that is. You do not have to make a political statement here if you do not wish to, but if you do have a reaction, what was that to that situation?
Yeah, I will be honest that I have been working through a lot of emotional reactions to that in particular this week. It's what prompted some sports psychology this week. And I think ultimately where my reaction comes from is just disappointment in how CrossFit as an organization is handling the semifinal seeding process. It's no fault of the athletes for their choices. I'm not somebody that thinks whether you have a vaccine or not, or whether you have a passport or not. Like, I don't think that those are decisions that people should be forced one way or the other. But I think that if CrossFit is choosing to accommodate for those things, that's something that very easily could have been targeted pre-seeding. And so if you are going to move, let's say, a top seed into another semifinal that already has a very stacked field, that the least you could do is see if another top seed would be willing to shift. I will say publicly, I have sent a response to CrossFit asking for consideration to be moved to Atlas Games, saying that I would be more than willing to do that. And I've yet to receive any response back. So to me, that's disappointing. That it just gives the air that CrossFit is playing favorites and isn't being cognizant of the impact of their actions on the athlete pool as a whole. So I'm not asking for special treatment. All I'm asking is for a fair shot at qualifying. And at this point, I don't feel like I have that.
Yeah, all of these were known issues prior to seeding, so there's no excuse that this is happening after the fact.
Yep.
I agree with you that everybody is entitled to their opinion on what they want to do with their own body, whether they want to be vaccinated or not. And there are more serious situations going on that are not vaccinated related, that have not been dealt with, that were known
Yes.
issues before the seeding, and the people are left in limbo. So
Yes.
it this is a cluster that did not have to happen because all of these were known prior to seeding.
Yeah. So it's like at minimum, let's be consistent in making athlete accommodations. Just as you said, there are several athletes who are very well known to be, having difficulty leading the country and coming back. And it's, if you're not going to provide accommodation for them, then why are we accommodating others? And again, it gives the air of prioritizing kind of your top names, your golden children in the sport. And it really is disheartening as like an athlete who has really sacrificed a lot to just have a fair shot. And that's all I can kind of come back to.
Yeah.
So.
And I'll point out that last year, Amanda Barnhart and Fisa Goffi were at the MAC, and this year they're at the Granite Games. So last year they got Tia put in their semifinal. This year they get Mal put in their semifinal. Those two should be launching protests all over the place.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and I think, going back, it didn't affect me directly, but I would have been very upset at that situation last year. I think that in all fairness, if you're going to make those shifts, add a spot to that one, or move a spot. If you look at the breakdown now of Granite Games versus, let's say, Atlas Games, and there's phenomenal athletes across the board, but it's not an even spread right now. And it's not taking into account that you have several athletes who maybe didn't have the highest quarterfinals placing, but have been to the games numerous times, a Danny Spiegel and Emily Rolfe, like they are serious contenders. So it just, the whole picture just leaves a little bit of a sour taste. And, I'm working through it, because ultimately if they choose not to acknowledge or make any adjustments, I've got to accept the fact that this is what it is, and dwelling on it isn't going to be productive for the rest of my training. So